let's just have an introduction of everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Terrence Stevenson. I am based out of Seattle, returned Peace Corps volunteer, and I kind of work in the social impact space. I am a social impact consultant for a company I started called Peace Atlas, and I'm a social impact manager for a startup called GiveWith. And we'll just go around. Cami, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Cami. I also attended Bradford, and I served in the Peace Corps from 2013 to 2015 in Zambia, teaching agriculture and business skills to rural farmers. So I currently work for the Foreign Egg Service at USDA in Washington, D.C. You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Shannon, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would absolutely love to, Terrence, and thank you so much. I am joining from the International Center at the University of Michigan as a Peace Corps prep advisor while I work on my second master's degree in social work. I did my first master's degree at the University of Bradford as a Rotary Peace Fellow, and I served nearly 3 years as a Peace Corps volunteer in Ukraine from 2017 to 2020 when I was evacuated. So thank you, Terrence, for the invite today. I'm really excited to talk about what we have in front of us.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. And Rebecca, would you like to introduce yourself now?
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be joining you all today. My name is Rebecca Mukibi. I am a copy editor at a commercial real estate law firm in New York City, as well as a peace and gender advocate. I served in Peace Corps Morocco in 2013 and 2015, and currently serving as a Rotary Peace Fellow.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think, Rebecca, let's go ahead and start with you with some of our questions. Would you be able to share why you decided to join the Peace Corps and talk a little bit about your service? Like, what did you do? You mentioned a little bit about where you serve, but can you share a little bit about your Peace Corps service?
Yes, so during undergrad, I attended a Peace Corps info session at my university, the University of California, Riverside. It was the beginning of my senior year, and unlike many of my friends, I knew that I did not want to go directly to graduate school because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but also because I wanted to try something new that would raise my social awareness on a global level. At the time, I was also the social actions chair for my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and which gave me the opportunity to organize a number of community projects. And so after the Peace Corps session, I felt like serving as a volunteer was my calling. And from there, I just started working on my application. And I eventually, after a year of applying and getting through the health requirements, I served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Morocco, rural Morocco, in a tiny town called Akka, from 2013 to 2015 as a youth and community development volunteer. And in partnership with the Moroccan Ministry of Youth and Sports, I was placed with a youth center where I organized a number of life skills programs and also worked with women's associations as well as out-of-school girls. I also taught English, and also, yeah, it was a life-changing experience. And I'm so thankful and grateful for the time that I had in Morocco.
That's awesome. It sounds like you've had a lifetime of service. That's really cool. Shannon, would you like to share about kind of your Peace Corps experience?
I would love to. I want to echo off with what Rebecca just said about her life in Morocco, and my life in Ukraine completely changed my trajectory. One that I'm very grateful for. So when I was serving in Ukraine, apart from writing a couple USE grants, 2 SPA and 1 LGL grant, I found this organization called Rotary. Because I was trying to find additional resources so I can support youth development initiatives in my country of service. And I found this organization, Rotary. I'm like, let's see what we can do. And so through another Peace Corps volunteer who already had establishment relationship with Rotary, I was able to make those connections. And in 2019, we launched RILA through a Peace Corps and Rotary collaboration in country. So, and then despite COVID happening and despite the evacuation, we went on, did a RILA in 2020 online. And then we did a RILA again in 2021 as I was a Rotary Fellow. Now, what's RILA relevant to this story is that while I was promoting RILA back in 2019, a stranger, Rotarian that I never met in person, reached out to me through the RILA connections. And I was trying to promote this international program. And he's like, Shannon, through an email chain, I think you might have the goods to apply for this fellowship. And so through the kindness of this gentleman by the name of Gordon Cran, he coached me through the process, and I applied. I wrote the 5 essays, I got some feedback, and 6 months later, I received the application, well, not the application, but the award through an email while I was in Poltava during a safety warden training. So it was quite remarkable. Now, that what brought me.
Oh. Sorry, everyone. Give me 1 second.
It's okay, Terrence. I'll take that personally.
So sorry about that. Just want to keep everyone's muted.
I took the hint. It's okay. But anyway, long story short, I got the fellowship in England, very grateful for it, for my experience, and because I wanted the more vocab for project management. That brought me to my 2nd master's degree at the University of Michigan. And I also have a Coverdale fellowship as well, and a Weiser's Democracy School fellowships. For my experience with Rotary and my life in Ukraine as a Peace Corps volunteer, I received $130,000 worth of graduate school scholarships through doing the work, but Peace Corps really has elevated my experience, and Rotary really provided me a platform to excel. So I'm really grateful for both organizations. I'm excited.
Awesome.
Thank you, Terrence.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Shannon. And as you can see, just to everyone, I'm not used to hosting for Zoom calls, so there's a lot of technical glitches. Thank you for your patience. Cami, would you like to share about your Peace Corps experience?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Minnesota, in a rural farming community there. And I had, of course, heard about Peace Corps through a recruiter in my undergrad. And I knew that I definitely wanted to serve. I had an interesting childhood where kind of both of my parents left me, and my mom had me quite young when she was a teenager. And so I felt like there were a lot of people in my life who had been mentors for me and volunteered a lot of their time and saw something in me. So I really felt a need that I wanted to do something where I gave back, and particularly, of course, wanted to explore and see a different culture. And so like Peace Corps was hitting all of those things for me. Of course, studying Mandarin in my undergrad, I thought I was going to go to China, but apparently my agriculture skills were more of value. And so I ended up serving in Zambia in a beautiful little community in the southern part of the country. And even after my service, I have, together with the community, have helped to build a school there. So I've been going back for many years now, working in, basically started the school from scratch, and then we've built it up to like almost 300 kids now. So, and actually my current career too is working in the same type of thing. So I'm actually working in child's food, helping with school lunch programs in different countries on the continent of Africa. So yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. And I think it's always great when you're able to kind of like find that balance to incorporate kind of the work that you did during Peace Corps into kind of your continued work and service now. Just to share a little bit about my story, I served in Armenia from 2012 to 2014. And I lived in a small town called Kapan in the South. And it was a really great experience. I heard about Peace Corps, I think initially, I kind of heard about Peace Corps my whole life, and I always thought it was like people being dropped out of helicopters into like into the continent of Africa. But it wasn't until I think I did an internship in DC that a recruiter came to one of the sessions, and I learned about it initially there, and then I got some really great advice by a man that everyone here probably knows, John Hugo, the General Secretary of the Rotary Foundation. And I was an intern for him, and he gave me some really great advice about giving back prior to starting a career. And that kind of gave me a lot of motivation to ultimately join the Peace Corps. And like everyone else here, it really changed my life. It was really great. I subsequently, through a kind of unique set of events, was introduced to the Rotary Peace Fellowship. I completed a master's in international peace and conflict resolution at American University, and the director of my program was contacted by an alumni of our program who said, the Rotary club that she's associated with is looking for applicants for this fellowship. And initially I was like, I had already completed a master's, or I was on the process of completing it. And I was like, I'm not ever doing grad school again. But I looked into the program, and initially I thought it was a scholarship. I looked into the program, and it was a really unique opportunity. And it offered an opportunity to supplement some of the research that I was doing. My research kind of intersects business in the private sector and peace and social impact. And the program at the University of Bradford offered that opportunity in a very unique and generous way. So I applied. I went through the application process through the Rotary Club in Thousand Oaks, California, a really, really great club, and went through the process and ultimately got it. And so that's kind of how I ultimately became a Peace Fellow at the University of Bradford. And we're all going to share a little bit about like kind of how that connection works. But first, Rebecca, would you mind talking about your Rotary Peace Fellowship experience?
Yes. So I am currently a Rotary Peace Fellow at the McCary University. McCary University is the first, holds the first Rotary Peace Center on the African continent. I am a part of their third cohort of Peace Fellows, and I am doing the professional development program, certificate program. So I'm getting a postgraduate degree in peace building, conflict transformation, and development. As a Rotary Peace Fellow in the professional development program, we are expected to complete a social change initiative project. So I'm doing mine on refugee economic empowerment, and I'm working and partnering with a refugee led and founded organization called Sina Loketa. They are located in northern Uganda in Bidi Bidi refugee settlement. I was just there a few weeks ago conducting focus groups with the community members, and I'll be returning to Bidi Bidi this coming month in October to actually implement peace building education programs, workshops, as well as find different ways we can expand income generating activities within Bitty Bitty settlement. I first heard about the Peace Fellowship through my professional network and colleague through another service organization that I participated in called the American India Foundation. I was a livelihoods fellow in India for a year, and so I was a part of this network, and they sent an email about the Rotary Peace Fellowship, and I was intrigued. This was right after I had gotten my master's degree, and similar to Peace Corps, I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone, and so I thought this was a unique and amazing opportunity, especially since I had previous peace work experience. And so I reached out to the contact person that was included in this email for the Rotary Peace centers. And I did more research and I applied. And I actually applied for the first time in 2020, right as the pandemic was starting. And I had some hesitations. So I started the application in 2020, but did not submit it. And then in 2021, this is when I got that email and decided to finally go through with it. And I'm glad I did.
Oh, wow. That's so awesome. And if I'm not mistaken, Rebecca, the Uganda program is the newest Peace Fellowship program, correct?
It is the newest program. Yes. So they're about to start the 4th cohort. So the first cohort graduated when I was in Uganda for my field experiences in March. And I'll be completing my fellowship in February of next year.
Oh, that's awesome. It's great to hear. It's great to get your insight as a currently completing Peace Fellow. That's awesome. So Cami, can you share a little bit about your Peace Fellowship experience?
Yeah, so I actually heard about it through a friend who I guess I was kind of telling her about where I wanted to head with my life and kind of how I had no idea exactly, but I knew I generally wanted it to be in kind of the peace and development sector. And she was like, have you heard about this Rotary Peace Fellowship? So then I started reaching out to some of the Rotary clubs in the DC area and chatting with them and reaching out to people who had participated in the past and found out that it was, really fantastic. And eventually I got accepted to the University of Bradford, and they actually have a pretty robust African studies program there. So I was very excited, and that's kind of where I was hoping to. I had such an amazing experience in Zambia. I wanted to continue working, at least hopefully in that general area, and learning some Swahili and all of that. I went to Bradford and had a really good experience there.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And just so everyone knows, both Cami, Shannon, and I were all Peace Fellows at the University of Bradford. I kind of am the link between Cami and Shannon because Cami completed her fellowship, and we intersected by about a year. And then Shannon and I intersected by about a year. And on that note, Shannon, would you like to share a little bit about your experience at the University of Bradford?
I would love to. Please forgive the noise in the background. I am in my cubicle, my Peace Corps cubicle at the International Center here at the University of Michigan, like I mentioned earlier. So if there's background noise, it's because it's a busy office. And Terrence, there's another Peace Corps volunteer actually at Bradford right now, and she served in Botswana. So there's a high correlation between Peace Corps volunteers and Rotary Fellows and the service above self when it comes to this correlation and relationship between these two organizations. So I'm really excited as time goes on that we're going to continue gathering ourselves and create a little subgroup so we can network with each other. So I'm excited about that. But anyway, back to your question. My experience at Bradford was quite unique, according to all other groups from what I was communicated with by the administration, by the director, who is now Fiona McConnell. And my cohort got delayed by a semester because of COVID, right? So like I mentioned earlier, I was evacuated from Ukraine due to COVID-19, given 48 hours to leave the country. We had 8 to 9 flight cancellations. It took us 6 days or so to get out of the country. So we had about 260 volunteers and then 7,300 plus of us trying to leave simultaneously from all different continents. So it was quite a big evacuation, and I was part of that. And so we weren't really sure what was going to happen with our fellowship. So things were kind of up in the air. And lo and behold, soon enough, we found out that our program got delayed. And our administration at the university did our best to get us to there at the program to be in person, right? So when we finally got the information to arrive, which we were all really grateful for, we ended up doing it. My cohort did a 10-day hotel lockdown in our individual rooms after we flew across the country into England. And once we got there too, we had to figure out how our housing situation was going to work. So 5 of us out of 10 of us end up sharing a 5-bedroom flat. And we never met each other before. So it was USA, it was South Korea, South Sudan, Brazil, and Argentina. Moving in with each other. And it was 5 out of the 10 of us living together for about 5.5 months. And then we were able to figure things out from there. And everything was online from our hotel, like from our dorm room, actually. So we spent a lot of time to get to know each other. And I think as a result of that experience, I think the best thing about the experience, besides the administration at the university and how so incredibly supportive they were, was the relationship I have with my cohort. We're extremely close. We're still on a group chat. I strongly admire all of them. I can't wait to see what they're going to go do. And right now, my heart is going out to one of our fellows who's actually currently in Iran, and the internet's now shut off. So I'm waiting for the internet to go on so I can talk to Humera, who's also a Rotary Fellow. And I really appreciate that diversity and how far from different parts of the world we are. And we're all brought together in the commonality of peace studies and international development. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now, Terrence, but I'm happy to talk about it.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, Shannon. And our thoughts are with everyone right now in Iran. There are protests happening. I'm sure everyone has heard the news. And so it's really great to be connected through the fellowship with so many amazing people from around the world. I also wanted to note that the 4 of us kind of represent a timeline of in which 3 of us kind of intersected with the pandemic. And as you can hear from Shannon's story, the fellowship did go on throughout the pandemic, but Rebecca's currently serving. I served right when the pandemic started, and it was such a crazy, wacky time, but the Rotary Foundation was able to kind of create a space for us to continue, which I'm really grateful for. I did want to pause briefly to introduce a few people who are on the call with us. Christine Torres, she represents the Rotary Peace Centers, and she's able to answer some questions. We're gonna have a Q&A after this last question. But so if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. But I wanted to, let's see, I want to give Christine a second to introduce herself. Thank you so much for joining us, Christine.
Thank you for inviting me. This is great. So I'm Christine Torres, and I work in the marketing and recruitment role for the Rotary Peace Centers here in Evanston. I'm fairly new in the role, but I have worked at Rotary for a couple of years, so I'm pretty familiar with the program and with the incredible work that all of our fellows are doing around the world. We actually have about 1,600 alums now, working in about 140 countries around the world, doing peace building work in all kinds of capacities. And, you know, my job is to tell those stories and to make sure, you know, at least through our Rotary channels and others, that these stories get told, and, you know, all your work is promoted well. And I think actually, Terrence, you actually have a feature coming up in Rotary Magazine. So we'll look for that. I think it's maybe the October or November issue. I've seen it. It's a good story. But I would
you so
love,
much.
yeah, I would love to be in touch with all of you actually too, to tell your stories in one way or another. We have a Facebook page, a newsletter, and blogs and a magazine, and a lot of ways that we tell the stories. But yeah, each year for the rest of the folks on the call who are looking into possibly applying for the Rotary Fellows Program, we award 130 fully funded fellowships every year. And they study at one of 7 of our peace centers around the world. We partner with, you know, top universities that offer master's degrees. And then, as Rebecca's working in, a professional development certificate program, which is a 1-year program. So there's a couple of options. And our centers are located in Japan, Sweden, England, which is where Bradford is, and Australia, Thailand, and Uganda, where Rebecca is a fellow now at Makerere University. We do have one more center. It's Duke UNC, based out of North Carolina. They typically don't take applications from US citizens or US based applicants. They look for those global citizens to come from around the world. And in a similar fashion, the other universities around the world, you know, look for, you know, applicants from the US and other countries to come in and apply there. It's like Peace Corps. It's competitive, as you all know, Shannon and Rebecca and Terrence and Cami. But you know, there's lots of ways to find out if you are competitive, ways to become competitive. There's specific, you know, qualifications, basic qualifications, you know, that you need to have. And then beyond that, it's, I think, which part of your message here is to, you know, connect with those Rotary clubs, those local Rotary clubs that can help you get endorsed. That's part of the process to becoming, you know, the next step, which is then to be interviewed and looked at by the actual university programs themselves. But everything that a Peace Corps volunteer has is extremely useful for the Fellows Program as well. So the language skills, you know, the community relationships that you've learned to build, the partnerships, you know, working with other organizations, leadership, adaptable, flexible, resourceful, and all of the sectors that Peace Corps volunteers are working in match nicely also with the fellowship and Rotary values and all of the causes that Rotary is involved with as well. So there's definitely a really good partnership between Peace Corps and Rotary as a whole, and then the fellowship program falls into that partnership, you know, really nicely too. And I think that the Peace Corps experience is looked upon in the application for the fellowship as just a really tremendous asset. And you know, there's more I can say, of course, but I want to hear your stories, and so does everyone else. And then if there are further questions, I'm here to help answer those.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Christine, and for being here and being available for the questions. The Peace Fellowship, as you mentioned, I think it's a very unique, I always describe it as a very uniquely generous fellowship, because there are a number of fellowships that kind of support international service and public service, but very few of them allow such a breadth of being able to go to international locations and kind of integrate with the community in a way that the Rotary Peace Fellowship does, in a way, kind of very similar to Peace Corps, because you kind of are living amongst a new community in another country for an extended period of time. So it's really great. And also, I just want to quickly just recognize Carrie Golden, who is the partnership specialist at the Rotary Foundation. And just want to thank her for being here too, and connecting us to Christine. And yeah, just wanted to share that. And we're gonna, like, as I mentioned, we're gonna have an opportunity for questions very shortly. I do want to ask the panel one more kind of question. And Cammie touched on this a little bit in kind of your last your response. And that is about connecting to Rotary clubs in order to support your kind of application and Peace Fellowship, the process. So just to share a little bit, I shared this earlier, but kind of my road to the Peace Fellowship, I was introduced to it through an alumnus of the fellowship, and she connected me to a club in California. And that club kind of served as my gateway through the process, because as I've understood it, and Carrie and Christine, maybe you can clarify this after, like during the Q&A, but I believe you have to kind of go through a Rotary club and through the district process in order to get endorsed. But that was my path through it. Cammie, you mentioned that you actually took the initiative of finding clubs, local clubs in your area. Could you share a little bit about that, the challenges in doing that, how you navigated it, and any tips that you would recommend to anyone who is who's applying to the Peace Fellowship and are wanting to kind of go that direction?
Yeah, sure. So I had found out about the fellowship, and I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks until the deadline. So all of a sudden I was in crunch mode. If I wanted to apply for it, I was going to need to like figure things out pretty fast. And so I searched online, and I found that there were three main clubs in DC. One I met was in downtown, and they were more so government workers that were part of their Rotary Club. It was interesting to see the different types of vibes and the type of atmosphere that you got from the different types of clubs, because this club was very more like business professional. So people showed up in their suits. They usually met after work. They met on a weekday, right after work day. And then I went to another club where they usually met at a local bar. It was much more casual. And I actually ended up asking them to be my sponsor club. And they were really great as far as helping with the application. They offered to read through everything. They wanted to meet up just to like talk about the process and how it would go. Like basically they were putting so much effort forward, and asking for me to come and to speak and just to chat and just to meet beforehand or afterhand if I had any questions. So I thought that was actually really, really helpful as far as it's kind of an intimidating process. It's super competitive. There's a lot of people going into it, and you're a little bit worried about everything overall. So it was actually really helpful to have some physical people kind of hand-holding me through the process, which is really helpful. So.
Oh, that's awesome, Cammie. Very similar experience. The club that sponsored me kind of helped, they kind of held my hand and kind of helped me guide me through the process, and I think that's a really important aspect of the process, because the Rotary clubs, they're the ones who are kind of experts. They know the process. They have to endorse you. They know kind of like what to do. And so I think that relationship with that initial Rotary Club is important. It's a kind of an important thing to think about kind of going through. And Shannon, you kind of had like similar to me, you had a kind of a non-traditional kind of route to Rotary endorsement in relation to your application. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I certainly can. And I want to apologize in advance. I have a Peace Corps information session at 4 o'clock. So I may have to skip out about a couple minutes early, Terrence, as much as I don't want to, but I'm really excited about this too, because I'll be talking to other university potential Peace Corps volunteers. So I can share with them the Rotary Fellowship as well. So we'll see how that moves forward. But to reiterate about my experience, as I mentioned earlier, I was scouted out. Someone found me to apply to this fellowship, and I felt so incredibly supported by this individual, a complete stranger within the Rotary family, that it kind of just really boosted me in a way I'd never been boosted before. And that he took the time when I gave him my essays to provide me some critiques, to make sure I sent my message out the message I wanted to send. So not only did the application boost my writing skills as well, it just boosted my confidence in general, that having someone believe in me and my capabilities and my experience as a Peace Corps volunteer while working on the Ryla project and working in central Ukraine. And not only like that relationship that has been built, I still maintain that relationship. So, and everybody else, he's a phenomenal networker. He pretty much knows everybody through his email chains. But oh, I have so much more I can share, but unfortunately, we don't have time for that. I think we'll have to share all that additional information on a future session. But I can also share my email if anyone wants to get in touch with me in the future as well. We can schedule out one-on-ones. So, yeah, I'll make myself available.
Oh, that's awesome, Shannon. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you are, just FYI, you probably can tell that Karen is the owner of this host account. She looks a little bit different than I do, but it's coming from those questions that says Karen are coming from me, Terrence. And so just FYI. But Shannon, if you would, and also Rebecca, Cammie, anyone else, if you are willing to, please share your any contact information. If you're wanting, if you would like to, no pressure at all. And if anyone wants to get kind of more information, you'll be able to find more information at partneringforpeace.org, which is the website of the organization. And Rebecca, you shared a little bit about your experience kind of navigating the Rotary Club. I would say that's probably one of the more mystical aspects of the process. Can you share about how you navigated that, your experience in doing that, and any tips for the audience?
Yeah, so when I first started applying to the fellowship and realized that in addition to the 2 letters of recommendations from an employer, I also needed an endorsement letter as well as a Rotary Club recommendation letter. I reached out to a Rotary Peace Center contact person to see if they could get me in touch with a district committee person for the endorsement. The person that they got me in contact with was someone in Uganda, because in this email, I gave them a brief background of myself. I am Ugandan American, so they thought like, okay, I would be applying as a Ugandan citizen. Unfortunately, it took a while, getting in touch with that person. So I took it upon myself to do research on Rotary clubs in New York City, as well as the district district committees that deal with the fellowship. I realized, like Cammie, that there are quite a number of Rotary clubs, and each one of them has their own personality. And so I, just did an online search and came upon the Brooklyn Bridge Rotary Club. I got their contact information and emailed them. And I also realized that they had an events calendar on their website. So I took it upon myself again to, go out and attend some of their in-person meetings, as well as their virtual meetings. When I first introduced myself to them and also expressed my interest in the fellowship, to my surprise, they actually weren't familiar with the Rotary Peace Fellowship. So I was the one to kind of like introduce and explain to them what this fellowship was and how they could support me as a Rotary Club. And so from there, we, conducted a few meetings where they interviewed me, and then they, thought that it would be an interesting partnership for them to not only recommend me, but also find other ways that they could support this project if I was selected as a Rotary Peace Fellow. So for the endorsement letter, during the application process, there's an option to put in your zip code, and the application system will run a search and give you the district committee person that chairs the Rotary Peace Fellowship for your district. So they gave me a name and an email address. And so I took it upon myself again to just, go out there, email this person, introduce myself. Within the hour, she, Miss Beverly, emailed me back and basically said, we need to set up an interview. She contacted all of the other district committee members and we discussed the fellowship. I shared with them my application, my essays, my resume. They helped me out so much. Similar to Shannon, they helped improve the quality of what I was articulating in my essays, how my application looked, and it was such valuable information because for other fellows who maybe apply but don't reach out to the district committee until the later part of the process, it kind of holds you back. So the sooner you get in touch with the district committee and the Rotary clubs, the more it benefits you as an applicant, because they're only going to help you make your application stronger and better and improve your chances of being selected as a Peace Fellow.
Awesome. Yes. Thanks for sharing that, Rebecca. And I think something that you've shared I think we would all agree, something that's really important about the process is intentionality. So whether that is, if you're really interested, whether that is finding, taking the initiative and being intentional about finding the club yourself, and also kind of going through the process. One of the challenges that I kind of experienced was, as everyone kind of mentioned, the Rotary clubs are made up of a lot of different members with varying understanding about Peace Corps, peace in general, but a lot of great understanding about the process in some cases. And I had to kind of make the case for why my Peace Corps service counted toward some of the eligibility aspects of the to meet the criteria to apply. And basically that means telling the story of how my Peace Corps service was peace work. And that's something that might seem apparent, but some people, there are a lot of misconceptions about Peace Corps service. And some people think, oh, it's volunteer, it's not really work experience. But in fact, it is work experience. But the burden is kind of on the applicant to show how it's work experience, how it's peace work, and to kind of talk about that and how that ties into the program. And so we've shared our contact information here. If you have any questions, as I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to everyone who's shared that information. And I want to, before we have to end, I wanted to make sure to look at some of the questions that were kind of shared. Kennedy asked, is it limited for Christian individuals, or is it multi-religious? And I think they are referring to the International Christian University in Japan. Christine or Carrie, would you be able to answer that question?
Yeah, that name does throw people off, but it isn't the case. It is not restricted to specifically, people from the Christian religion. It is open to all, and our fellowship is open to all as well. And
Awesome.
it's a wonderful program. Yeah.
Okay, and then we had a question from Etta from Albania. How does one find their path for being endorsed by the local Rotary Club in the US? And we kind of answered that in our responses. You kind of have to, if you're not introduced to a Rotary Club that is looking for that process, you can do like Cami, Rebecca, and search for clubs in your local area. Tell them they should know about the process, most Rotary clubs, but you can share with them, your interest in being endorsed and kind of go through it that way. And if you have any questions about that, Christine, I'm not sure, did you share your information? If you could share your information, Christine should be able to kind of help you in answering questions to navigate that. Because that's a really good question. Is there a minimum age requirement to participate in the program? I don't believe so. Do you know, Christine, if there is a minimum age? And then what are the major requirements for one to be enrolled into the program? A lot of this information can be found on the website that Carrie shared, the eligibility information and the information about the certificate and the master's program, which can be found on the website.
And I just wanted to add for searching for Rotary clubs, if you go onto my.rotary.org, I believe, you can search for clubs like in the local area and it'll show you. Also, you can just Google search it, but that specifically will tell you as well.
Right. Yeah, there is a feature on the Rotary website that's called Club Finder. And you can find a local club in your area or clubs to connect with, in that way, or do the Google search, or you can contact us. I'm trying to see if I can put this in the chat, but it's not letting me for some reason. But you can also just email us at Rotary Peace Centers at rotary.org. I'm trying to put that in here, but it's
awesome. Thank you so much, Christine.
Okay.
And we have a question. Could someone share about the coursework and field work while studying at the Peace Center? Alan, thanks for that question. I can just share that one of the main requirements is to you have both the certificate program and the master's program, you have to be studying some aspect of peace, which isn't hard because Rotary did a really great job of selecting institutions that kind of focus on peace. And so for most of the degree programs, it's going to be, or certificate programs, it's going to be focusing on some area of peace. Peace work in and of itself intersects so many different areas. So you can look at, for example, at the University of Bradford, peace and gender studies. You can look at peace education, security studies. I had kind of a unique area of peace and finance, economic development, and kind of the private sector. But you're going to be attending one of the kind of foremost peace institutions around the world. And so it's a lot of flexibility in kind of that area of study. And the field work experience, it sounds like you're referring to the applied field experience during kind of the middle part of it. Rotary allows you to find somewhere around the world to spend your summer, or at least if you're doing Bradford, spend a few months of your summer months studying or doing an internship or doing some type of applied field experience, so you can actually apply some of the things you're working, and that can then kind of support your dissertation or your thesis studies for your final semester, and also professional development. As I mentioned, we don't have a lot of time left, but I'll just share that due to the pandemic, I was limited in where I could study, but I was able to find opportunity in London and stay in country. And I was able to like really do some really awesome stuff with the University College of London. And so, as I mentioned, I'm happy to share more. All of our information is here in the chat. If you have any additional questions, and yeah, I think, yeah, we have about a minute left and we have a session following right after. And so thank you everyone so much for, to all the panelists for joining us. Christine, Carrie, also, thanks for joining and answering questions. And if you want to learn more about what we're doing, please visit us